hi, hello. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Heather, or if you're one of my students, I'm Miss Postwaite. And today we are going to talk about 10 reasons why kids maybe don't love reading. I'm going to share at the end of this video a couple of things that we can do to help with these 10 reasons why. I'm going to focus in on the middle grade area. So I'm looking at kids that are around 9 to 13, 9 to 12. So that age range is pretty big, but it kind of makes up our middle grade readers. So if that sounds good, let's dig in. Why does my kid not like reading? Let's get started. Of course, the very first one is going to be technology. That is the number one competition for kids' attention right now, hands down. And it's not just books and it's not just reading that are competing with those things. They are so enthralling and so addicting that it's a whole heck of a lot of things that are now in competition with that technology. Of course, I'm kind of talking about video games, but also doom scrolling in your phone, YouTube. Hello. Instagram, TikTok, it can be whatever is pulling them in. So the second reason that your kids may not like reading has to do with just how busy kids are. They are so busy. They are scheduled with sports. They are doing clubs. They have their gymnastics, and then they're running off to scout meetings, and then they have 4-H, and then they have, brothers football practice, and then sisters got cheerleading. And I know you know what this is like because you're the one driving everybody. So families are so overwhelmed sometimes with all the things that are going on, and kids are busy. With all of that, when are they going to have time to read? It's a lot. So reading isn't quite winning there. Number 3, reading slower. If a kid has always had the bells and the whistles and the flashes that technology screams for, anything that they're involved in oftentimes is pulling attention. And so a lot of our kids don't know how to be bored. They don't know how to be calm, how to be quiet in that space. So a book where we're calm and we're reading is oftentimes a little bit uncomfortable. If you've always had a screen or you're always doing something, like to sit down and just breathe and read, it sometimes is awkward and uncomfortable. And so if they can't settle into that, they don't know how. I have that a lot in my classes. We do 8 minutes at the beginning of class. I just don't have very long classes. And so I do what I can. So of the 20 minutes that I assign my kids, we do 8 minutes in class. Some of the kids can settle right down. You'd be surprised how much you can read in 8 minutes. Some of the kids just can't do it. They have to make a noise. They have to make some sort of weird attention drawing thing. Like they can't settle in and be comfortable with the quiet and be comfortable with the book and be comfortable with the story. I don't know what I would call that, but like a boredom aversion, a quiet aversion, just can't be calm. Number 4, there are times where, as the adult, we have used reading as a punishment. Maybe grounded our child, hey, you don't have your technology, you don't have your things, so you get to clean and then you're gonna read for an hour. It's not that we intended for it to be a punishment, and some kids would love that. There are absolutely people out there who'd be like, yes, please. But a lot of kids are now putting a negative association with that. Oh, I only read when I'm punished. Oh, I only read when I have to. Oh, my mom makes me read an hour every time I get in trouble at school. So instead of built in that love of reading, I get to read, it's, oh, I have to read that now. I have to do this. And so there is that negative association, doesn't build very much appreciation for reading. So another reason our kiddos might not like reading. Number 5, sometimes we just don't have those examples at home. As you know, when they're little, kids love to imitate, so they do what they see. If you have a reader at home, if the adults in the home are reading, if an older sibling is reading, then they're going to see that, see it modeled, and copy. But if the adults in the home don't read, you're always on your phone, which is, we all know, very addicting. But if we're not giving that example, they're not getting that example, they're not seeing that, then they're probably not going to associate reading with like an enjoyable activity, something that everybody does, because they're not seeing it modeled at home. I understand we're busy. I understand that's not always the first go-to, but it is a reason. It is a contributing factor. Number 6, we're going to go into that comprehension level. So if you have a child who is struggling and maybe it's not diagnosed yet, here they are 9 years old and we're still not picking up on maybe their spelling is the way that it is because there's actually a learning disability. Maybe they're a slower reader and so the comprehension isn't quite there. Maybe they're still learning how to decode the letters and pronounce and read, and so it takes so much work just to do that the story is kind of going over their head. When those things come in, it really does make reading difficult to enjoy because it's hard. It's hard to do. And so that is something that we definitely want your kids to be looked at. Get somebody involved who can help diagnose. If you're seeing a real struggle at home, if your child's having trouble reading with you, I would definitely bring that up with their teacher and see if you can't get some support and help there, because there is help, there is support there. Number 7, this kind of relates there, but if the book is the wrong level, then your kid's not going to be enjoying it. If it's too low, you're going to have boredom. Yes, every once in a while, it is a lot of fun to go back and read something that you read when you were younger or that you have really good memories with or some association there. That's not what I'm talking about. If they are continually choosing lower books, say they're in 6th grade and they are picking books that they were reading in 3rd grade, at first, maybe they will enjoy it. But there's going to come a point where it's not an engaging story for them. They have matured, they have moved forward, and especially if they've already read it, there's a point at which this is kind of boring. And so we want to make sure that they're not reading too low. By the same token, we also want to make sure that they're not reading too high. So if the reading level is too high, obviously they are going to struggle as well. It's not going to be fun. I don't understand these words. I have no idea what this is saying. What is it talking about? Maybe it's not the right maturity level for them. So there are some things when the level is much higher than them that is also going to kind of build that disconnect and not foster that love for reading. I have a really good hint and help for what to do with that. And that would be my rule of 5. I got this from somewhere. No idea where, somewhere in teacher training and over the years. But the rule of 5 is that you pick up a book and within the first 2 pages as you are reading, every time you don't know a word, you hold up a finger. So if you're going through the first page and you've already held up 4 to 5 fingers, this book is way above your level and this is not the right book for you. And you should probably put it down. It is fine if you're coming to a word you don't know. Maybe even 2 of them. That's fine. We want to grow. We want to learn. This is too many on 2 pages. You are way above your reading level. That is one just check that you can do, I guess. Number 8, kids don't always know how to, when you're reading a book, build the pictures in your brain. I don't know where the disconnect is or why we never learned that. But even in my classes recently, as I am working with my students and we are reading Percy Jackson. So I was asking them to do something and they had no clue. I'm like, wait. So we talked about this character. When they described that, how many of you pictured that in your brain? And several hands went up, but I was surprised at how many did not. So sometimes our kids are not enjoying books because they don't know how to make the movie play in their brain as they're reading. You're just reading the words. It's not building a story. It's not building a vision. It's not creating a world for them. And so that's something that if you're reading with children, helping them to visualize and to see it. I think it's a skill. It develops over time, and I'm going to be working with my students, and we're in 6th grade. That's one of the reasons that maybe reading isn't so fun. They're not seeing it. So there is no connection and no captivation. That's sad. Number 9. This one is more on like the schooling side. As kids get older, school gets harder. The reading that's required in school also gets more intense and more out of their hands. So they have to read this for science. They have to read this article in English. They have to read. So if there's a lot of that going on, they're not getting that choice. They're not getting that like connection to it. That can also lower our enjoyment of reading. Maybe we're just tired by the end of the day. That joy doesn't always show up. And when it doesn't show up, we do start to get that disconnect with kids. And it gets worse as they get older. School gets harder. And I've noticed even with my own children who absolutely adored reading in elementary school, still liked reading in middle school, they don't really enjoy it now at the high school and older level. And I'm hoping this piece, this like required reading piece, once they're out of that maybe they'll find the joy again. We'll see. Number 10 is low to no access. Kids are going to struggle with reading if they don't have access to books. The schools usually have libraries. Public libraries are my absolute favorite place in the world. The resources there and the opportunities that kids have to find books that they actually want to read. Meeting them where they're at. If they don't have access to books, that's really going to limit their love of reading. So highly recommend that opportunity. The more books they have access to, the more likely they are to gravitate that direction and enjoy that. All right, so we went through 10 reasons why our kids don't like reading. Let's give a few tools here. So I'm aiming for 5 tools to help combat that. So let's think about ways that we can make that better. Number 1, so remember how busy they are and all these things that they have going on and all these interests that they have and how technology is just sucking their attention and all of that. Okay, so our first thing is to meet them where they're at and find those interests that they are passionate about, that they really enjoy, and let's find a book about it. Oh, they're into gymnastics. Great. Here's a series and the kids in it are all gymnasts. Here's a nonfiction about, Olympic medalists in gymnastics. Oh, your kid really thought that it was really cool to dirt bike. Wow, here are 2 nonfiction books about dirt biking. And here's a fiction book about a kid that is in a dirt biking competition. So meeting them where they're at. And yes, there are books with video games in them. I do plan to talk more in depth about that in a later video. Meeting them where they're at, finding those interests, find those things that they like, go there. Number 2, bringing access to books available to them. So I also recommend filling your home with books. That can look like library books. I highly recommend that. I'm a huge advocate of the library. And over here, although you can't see it, is my library books. I shop my library a ton. Obviously, I also have a purchasing book issue. And I have discovered bookshop.org, which I absolutely love. I became affiliate. You can find my link down below if you're interested. I do earn a small commission if you choose to use that link at no cost to you. What it does though is that when you make a purchase from them, they make a contribution that goes to bookstores, small bookstores, independent bookstores all over the United States. I am loving this company and so excited to be associated with them. So anyway, if you click my link, you'll be taken to my library, and I have put a whole bunch of books that I've been talking about in videos just so you have easy access and you can kind of shop and compare. Making books available, making reading available. 3, we've kind of talked about technology and how it's go, 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 and how they struggle a little bit with that downtime. One thing, and you may already be familiar with this, is that there's this blue light from our screens, and it shifts the algorithm, it shifts the brain chemistry. I am not an expert on this, but it does something to us. And then when we go to sleep, if we've been on screens for a long time, our sleep is affected. It causes us to have some struggles. This applies to everybody, kids, adults, all of them. So one way that might help in calming the kids, making a routine, is to instill more of a bedtime routine that involves reading for 20 minutes instead of technology. We are kind of fighting back against that inundation of all of the screens with something that does calm, that does soothe, that does help your brain shift into conducive sleep. Number 4, it should be their choice what they're reading. Make sure that your kids have a say in that. What are they choosing to read? By allowing them to choose the book, it's their interest level. You're hitting a lot of these. Making reading a family thing. That hits several things. One, it's not just them doing it, and so it can be considered like a family activity. So you're actually getting to spend some time with a very busy kid, right? 2, there's added support. If your kid is struggling with comprehension, then you're there to support them. If they're struggling with building those pictures in their brain, do that together. Wow, I could really imagine what that character looked like when they were dressed like that, or when they did that activity, or that sounded so fun. Can't you just picture us doing that? So building those imageries, building that ability. It will also help if your kid is struggling with reading. So the kiddos that are actually have a reading learning disability, that helps support them as well. There's an adult in the room. The adult is helping to read. The adult is helping to support. The stories are being shared. Everybody is talking about them. Super good. Don't forget to make reading fun. Please make it fun. Do not ever make it like a chore. Maybe something that your family makes a challenge. Hey, when we finish this book, we're gonna go watch the movie. When we finish this book, we're gonna go out for ice cream to celebrate that we read, 4 books this month. So one more to add that was kind of funny. I was discussing what I had talked about on the video today with one of my kiddos, and they said, oh, well then obviously you also added this, and it was something that I hadn't even thought of. So I'm gonna add an 11th item to the list, and that is that sometimes the kids are not reading because media portrayals aren't actually very positive. My kiddo was mentioning that when you look at the way people who read are portrayed in movies and TV and that kind of thing, they're the nerds. They're not the popular kids. They're not like reflecting necessarily somebody who others want to emulate. So I guess an additional item for why reading isn't drawing our kids in might just be that it's not cool. I'm not really sure how to combat that. There are a lot of readers on a lot of the social media, obviously, here on BookTube. When you look at cartoons and videos and movies and all of that, I guess our role models aren't reading. Where's Reading Rainbow again? Come on. That was just an added thought. So maybe there's some things we can do there to bring in awesome role models who read. Okay, thanks guys.